Hi, I wanted to talk to you about three of the first applications that went through the process of the ICC and the hearings. It'll give you an idea of how long it took to go through the process. Now, let me preface this by saying the Interstate Commerce Commission Motor Carrier Act of 1935 not only regulated motor freight carriers, but it also brought under the ICC jurisdiction the ability to regulate bus lines. So, I know this is about trucking history, but when I cover the docket numbers that were issued and hearings were heard, some of what I'll talk about, like tonight, will be briefly about bus lines. Okay? Now, among the first certificates to be issued by the ICC was docket number MC 75875. It was granted to a bus line called Dayton Brothers Bus Line Incorporated. Here's the timeline for the progression of the docket. The company filed its application, and the application arrived at the ICC offices on January 15th, 1935. The hearing was held on April 1st, 1936. So it took from January to April to get things rolling and to have a hearing. The hearing was before what they called a joint board number 18. Joint boards, Dayton Brothers Bus Line covered routes in North Carolina and Tennessee. So a joint board of the Interstate Commerce Commission would have been representatives from North Carolina and the Tennessee side to hear the case. Each state was represented, and the man representing the state in the hearings had some idea of the operations within the state. Okay, so that's how joint boards functioned. The hearing was held on April 1st. The recommendations from that joint board in their report recommended that a certificate be issued to Dayton Brothers Bus Lines, and that was done on June 11th, 1936. So it took about 6 months from the time the application arrived to the ICC to go through the hearing process and to be heard at the hearing and a recommendation made. This was early, very early in the process, because there was tens of thousands of applications that arrived in the offices of the Interstate Commerce Commission solely from those companies, bus lines included, that wanted grandfather clause. And what was a grandfather clause? If you were in operation before June 1st, 1935, and you could prove it, then the process of getting a certificate or a permit, if you were a contract carrier, was a lot less because you were already in business. That's what I mean by grandfather clause, and that's what they meant. Okay. Here's an application filed earlier and took longer for a final decision to be made. Clarence L. Davis, who also ran a bus line called Semi-State Coach Line, he filed his application on January 3rd, 1936. That was roughly almost 2 weeks before Dayton Brothers. Okay. His docket number was 50007. For his hearing, the ICC created Joint Board number 10, and the hearing was held on April 7th. So his application was earlier. His hearing was within a week of the other one. There were several other bus companies that protested his application at the hearing. And wouldn't you know it, one of the protesting was the same Dayton Brothers bus line that I talked about before. So if you protested somebody else's application, it didn't matter what your reasons were. You were there to protect your territory, and that's what Dayton Brothers was doing. Since Clarence Davis could not show a real need for his service that was already covered by others, like Dayton Brothers, his application was denied on June 15th, 1936. So there you go. If there were a lot of other bus lines covering the same routes, I don't care if you were grandfathered in or not. You had to prove that your service was needed. The ICC would make a determination whether or not you were granted a permit or certificate. Here's an interesting one, and I don't think it involved a bus line because I couldn't see that in the information I had. It's docket number MC 50048, and the application was signed and verified by a gentleman that went by the name R. Biederman, a manager on behalf of E.A. Johnson. The application was filed on January 24th, 1936. At the hearing, now this is where it gets interesting. At the hearing, Mr. Jackson himself appeared before the ICC and testified that Biederman was not authorized to file the application, nor was he in any official position to do so. So apparently, R. Biederman assumed that he was in a position to file an application for authority with the ICC. Apparently, E.A. Jackson was his boss, and he didn't tell his boss anything. The application was discontinued on October 20th, 1936, and docket number 50048 went unissued. Now, can you imagine the conversation between Biederman and Jackson after that, or even before? Because he had to tell him, Biederman had to tell Jackson, hey, there's a hearing, you want me to go or do you? And Jackson went, I don't know anything about this. What did you do? I wonder if Mr. Biederman had a job for very long after Jackson got back from the ICC hearing. That would be a hoot. But that's an example of 3 applications. One got approved, one did not get approved, and one got discontinued. And these were very early in the process of the ICC and the hearings and determining who got certificates and who didn't. I thought this was rather interesting. I hope you guys did too. Now, we'll get back to the monthly trucking news probably tomorrow. I'm working on it, and I've got to, the next video will be about trucking news from April 1940. But, or is it May? I got to look that up. It's the next one, though. But I'll get back to it. But the last few videos I felt were important, and y'all needed to know about this stuff. So shoot me a comment, give me a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel. Speaking of subscribing, I'm real close to getting my 1,000. I want to get to 1,000 subscribers really, really soon. It means a lot to me and the success of this channel. So if you have any friends that are interested in trucking history, by all means, guide them over here and tell them to subscribe. I'd appreciate it. And we'll continue with the trucking news tomorrow.